Train your mind to focus on solutions, not problems. Published by Timeless Audiobook. Introduction. Your life will not improve the moment your problems disappear. Your life improves the moment your mind becomes stronger than your problems. Every day, challenges will show up in different forms: stress, rejection, financial pressure, unexpected setbacks, difficult people, missed opportunities. That part is normal, but what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is not luck, talent, or even intelligence. It is one simple mental habit: the ability to focus on solutions instead of drowning in problems. A problem-focused mind magnifies everything that is wrong. It repeats the same worries, relives the same mistakes, and predicts the worst possible outcome. And the more it thinks that way, the heavier life feels. But a solution-focused mind works differently. It searches for what can be done. It looks for the next step. It asks the right questions. It refuses to surrender to panic. And over time, it becomes calm, sharp, and unstoppable. This audiobook is not here to entertain you. It is here to train you. Because the truth is, the world does not reward those who complain the most. The world rewards those who adapt, build, and move forward. In this audiobook, we will learn how to break the habit of negative thinking, how to stop feeding fear, how to regain control over your attention, and how to build the mindset of a person who always finds a way. You will learn how to respond instead of react, how to take responsibility without self-destruction, and how to turn obstacles into fuel for growth. The goal is simple: to teach you how to think like a problem solver, speak like a builder, and live like someone who refuses to stay stuck. You don't need a perfect life. You need a disciplined mind. And that training begins right now. Let's begin.
Chapter 1. Catch yourself living in problems. Before you can change your life, you have to catch yourself thinking the way you've always thought. This is where everything begins. Not with motivation, not with big goals, but with awareness. Because most people don't realize they are living inside their problems. They wake up thinking about what's wrong. They replay the same worries. They talk about the same frustrations. And without noticing it, their mind becomes a permanent residence for problems. This doesn't happen because they are weak. It happens because the mind follows habits. And problem-focused thinking is a habit. It is learned through repetition, through conversations, through past failures, through fear, through environments where complaining feels normal. Over time, the mind stops asking, "What can I do?" and starts asking, "Why is this happening to me?" That shift may feel small, but it changes everything. When you live in problems, your energy drains quickly. You feel tired even when you haven't done much. Small obstacles feel heavy. Simple decisions feel overwhelming. And the worst part is this: the mind becomes so busy explaining the problem that it never creates space for a solution. You don't lack ability, you lack mental direction. Here's something important to understand. A problem itself is not the enemy. Every life has problems. Every successful person you admire has faced problems. The danger begins when your attention gets stuck there, when you keep replaying the issue, analyzing it from every angle, talking about it again and again, but never moving forward. That's not thinking, that's mental looping. And mental loops keep people trapped for years. So the first discipline you must develop is this: catch yourself. Catch yourself when your thoughts go negative. Catch yourself when you start complaining internally. Catch yourself when your mind keeps saying, "This shouldn't be happening," or "This is unfair," or "I can't deal with this." Don't judge yourself. Don't fight the thought. Just notice it. Awareness breaks the pattern. You might be surprised how often your mind returns to the problem without your permission. While you're walking, while you're eating, while you're trying to rest. That's why this chapter matters so much. You cannot train your mind to focus on solutions if you don't first notice how often it escapes into problems. Once you catch yourself, something powerful happens. You create a pause, and in that pause, you regain choice. You can say, "I'm doing it again." You can say, "I'm stuck in the problem." That moment of honesty is not weakness. It is strength. It is the beginning of control. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you stop feeding it unnecessarily. A problem needs attention, yes, but only enough to understand it. After that, attention must shift forward. But most people never make that shift because they don't notice the trap they're in. From now on, make it a daily practice to observe your thinking. Not all day, just a few moments at a time. Ask yourself, am I focusing on what's wrong or what can be done? That simple question will expose more than you expect. Catching yourself living in problems is not about changing everything at once. It's about noticing the pattern. And once you see the pattern clearly, you are no longer controlled by it. You are standing outside it. And from there, real change becomes possible. Chapter 2. Take back control of your attention. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you own, and most people give it away without realizing it. They hand it over to distractions. They hand it over to negativity. They hand it over to fear, social media, other people's opinions, and yesterday's mistakes. Then they wonder why they feel exhausted, unfocused, and mentally scattered. The truth is simple. You don't lose your life all at once. You lose it in small pieces every time you let your attention drift toward what weakens you. If you want to become a solution-focused person, you must understand this one principle. Your mind moves in the direction of whatever you focus on consistently, not occasionally, consistently. If you focus on problems, your mind becomes a problem factory. If you focus on possibilities, your mind becomes a solution machine. Your attention is like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever you shine it, that part of the room becomes your reality. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Your attention is not automatic. It is trainable. It is a muscle. At first, it feels like you can't control it because it's been weak for years. But once you begin training it, you start to feel power returning. Real power. The kind of power that makes you calmer, sharper, and harder to break. Think about how easily the average person gets pulled away from what matters. They sit down to work, and suddenly they're checking their phone. They try to plan their future, but their mind drifts into worry. They try to improve themselves, but they get distracted by entertainment. It's not because they are lazy, it's because their attention has been hijacked. And when attention is hijacked, discipline becomes difficult. So let's make this clear. If you can control your attention, you can control your life. Because every major change in your life begins with focus. Every breakthrough begins with focus. Every solution begins with focus. You can't build a better body without focus. You can't build a better career without focus. You can't build a better mind without focus. Focus is the doorway. Without it, everything leaks. Now let's talk about what steals your attention. One of the biggest thieves is emotional noise. When something goes wrong, the mind wants to replay it. When someone disrespects you, the mind wants to argue about it in your head. When you fail, the mind wants to punish you by bringing it up again and again. This is the mind's way of keeping you trapped in the past. And when you live in the past, you lose the power of the present. Another thief is constant stimulation. Your brain is not designed to jump from one thing to another every 10 seconds, but modern life trains it to do exactly that. Notifications, endless scrolling, quick entertainment, short videos, non-stop updates. This creates a mind that cannot sit still long enough to solve anything meaningful. And if your mind cannot sit still, it cannot think deeply. If it cannot think deeply, it cannot find real solutions. It can only react. So the first step to taking back control is this: recognize that your attention is under attack. Every day, all day. People want your attention because attention is power. Companies want your attention, drama wants your attention, even your own fears want your attention, and if you don't protect it, it will be taken. Now the second step is even more important. You must decide what deserves your attention. Not what screams the loudest, not what feels urgent, what deserves it. That's a different mindset. A solution-focused person does not chase noise. They choose priorities, they choose direction, they choose purpose. Here's a simple rule you can live by. If it doesn't help you grow, heal, improve, build, or move forward, it is probably not worth your attention. That doesn't mean life must be serious all the time, but it means you must stop letting meaningless distractions control your mind. When you wake up in the morning, your attention is fresh. It is clean, it is powerful, and the question is, what do you feed it first? Because whatever you feed first becomes the tone of your day. If you wake up and immediately absorb negativity, gossip and chaos, your mind becomes cloudy before the day even begins. But if you wake up and feed your mind something strong, purpose, gratitude, planning, clarity, then you begin the day like a leader. So start practicing this. Before you touch your phone, touch your mind. Before you check the world, check your direction. Ask yourself, what matters today? Ask yourself, what is one thing I must handle? Ask yourself, what is one solution I need to focus on? These questions guide your attention like a compass. Now let's get practical. When a problem appears, your attention will naturally go to the fear of it. That's normal. But you must train yourself to shift attention quickly, not in an hour, not tomorrow, quickly. You catch yourself and you say, all right, this is happening, but what can I do? That's the shift. That is the difference between a person who collapses and a person who adapts. And remember this, attention is energy. The more attention you give to something, the more it grows in your mind. If you give attention to anxiety, it grows. If you give attention to anger, it grows. If you give attention to progress, it grows. That's why your attention must be guarded like your money, because it is more valuable than money. You can lose money and recover it. But if you lose years of attention, you lose pieces of your life that you can never get back. You don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to be consistent. Each time you redirect your focus, you strengthen your mind. Each time you pull your attention away from useless worry and bring it back to action, you win. And those small wins begin to build a new identity. So from today forward, stop letting your attention be stolen. Stop letting distractions dictate your mood. Stop letting problems occupy your mind all day. You don't have to live that way. You can take control. You can choose where your mind goes. You can decide what you focus on. Because when your attention becomes disciplined, your life becomes disciplined. And when your focus becomes sharp, solutions begin to appear where you once saw only problems. Chapter 3. Ask better questions and you'll get better answers. The quality of your life is often determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Not the questions you ask other people, not the questions you ask the world, the questions you ask inside your own mind every single day. Because your mind is like a search engine. Whatever you type into it, it will try to find. If you ask weak questions, you will get weak answers. If you ask strong questions, you will find strong solutions. Most people don't realize that their problems grow bigger because of the questions they keep repeating. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "Why is my life so hard?" They ask, "Why do I always fail?" They ask, "Why doesn't anyone help me?" And when you ask those questions, your mind goes to work. It starts gathering evidence. It starts listing reasons. It starts building a story that supports helplessness. And suddenly, you feel even more trapped. That's why solution-focused people don't just think differently. They question differently. They don't sit in emotional confusion and demand sympathy from life. They sit in reality and demand direction from themselves. And that shift begins with a better question. Here is a powerful truth you must understand. Your brain is designed to answer questions. It is wired for problem solving, but it cannot solve a problem if you keep feeding it the wrong question. Imagine someone standing at a locked door yelling, "Why is this door locked?" That person will stay stuck. But another person stands there and asks, "How can I open this door?" That person starts looking for keys, tools, alternate entrances, or ways to break through. Same door, different question, different outcome. So let's talk about the questions that keep people trapped. One of the most dangerous questions is, why me? Because why me creates victim thinking. It creates a mindset where life is always unfair and you are always powerless. And the more you ask, why me, the more you train your mind to see yourself as someone who is unlucky, cursed, or defeated. That is a deadly mental habit. Another damaging question is, what if everything goes wrong? That question produces anxiety. It forces your mind to imagine disasters that haven't happened. And the mind doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined danger. So you start feeling stress, fear, and tension even while nothing is happening. Your body reacts. Your sleep suffers. Your confidence weakens. All because of a question that never served you. Now compare that with solution questions. Solution questions do not deny reality. They direct reality. They take the situation and force your mind to search for progress. A solution-minded person asks, "What can I do right now?" They ask, "What is my next best step?" They ask, "What can I learn from this?" They ask, "What is within my control?" They ask, "How can I improve the situation, even slightly?" Those questions activate your strength. They activate creativity. They activate responsibility. And responsibility is where solutions begin. You see, the mind is like water. It flows where it is guided, and questions are the channel. If your questions guide the mind toward weakness, it will flow there. If your questions guide the mind toward power, it will flow there. So let's make this practical. When you face a setback, don't just sit there and emotionally collapse. Pause, take a breath, and ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, what exactly is the problem? Not what it feels like, not what you fear it will become. What is the actual problem? Many people suffer because they never define the problem clearly. They just carry the weight of it. But once you define it, you reduce its power. Second, what part of this is within my control? This question is life-changing, because the moment you identify what you can control, you regain power. You might not control the past. You might not control what someone else did. You might not control the economy or the weather or the timing, but you can always control your response, your effort, your planning, your attitude, and your actions. And those are the things that create solutions. Third, what is one step I can take today? Not one step that solves everything, just one step that moves you forward. Because progress is built through small actions repeated consistently, and small actions create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates more action, and suddenly you're no longer stuck. Now listen closely. The questions you ask will shape your identity. If you keep asking, "Why am I not good enough?" you will become insecure. If you keep asking, "Why do people always betray me?" you will become bitter. If you keep asking, "Why can't I ever win?" you will become defeated. But if you ask, "How can I become stronger?" you will become stronger. If you ask, "What can I do better next time?" you will improve. If you ask, "What is the lesson here?" you will grow. Your mind listens to you. It believes what you repeat, and questions are repetition in disguise. Some people don't realize that they are mentally interrogating themselves every day with negative questions. They wake up and ask, "How am I going to survive this?" They look at their situation and ask, "What's the point?" They look at their future and ask, "What if I fail again?" And these questions poison the mind. They poison it slowly, like a drip of negativity every day. So from today forward, you must become the director of your inner conversation. You must become the mentor in your own mind. When life hits you hard, don't talk to yourself like a helpless child. Talk to yourself like a strong leader. Talk to yourself like someone who expects to find a way. Ask better questions. Again, ask better questions. Because better questions lead to better thinking. Better thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better habits. And better habits lead to a better life. The solution is not always immediate, but the moment you ask the right question, your mind begins moving in the right direction. And that is how progress starts. Not with luck, not with perfect conditions, but with one powerful decision: to question your way into a better life.
Chapter 4. Stop reacting. Start responding. One of the biggest reasons people stay trapped in problems is not because they lack intelligence and not because they lack potential. It's because they live in reaction mode. Something happens and they react. Someone speaks and they react. Life shifts and they react. And before they even understand what is happening, their emotions take control, their words spill out, and their decisions become rushed and messy. Reaction is automatic, response is intentional. And that difference right there can determine the entire direction of your life. A reactive person is like a leaf in the wind. Wherever life blows, they go. Their mood changes based on what someone says. Their motivation depends on how things feel today. Their confidence rises and falls based on results. But a responsive person is different. A responsive person has a pause. A responsive person has control. They don't ignore reality, but they don't surrender to it either. They process what is happening, and then they choose their next move. And if you want to train your mind to focus on solutions, you must learn this skill. Because solutions are not created in emotional chaos. Solutions are created in clarity. Think about it. When you are angry, you don't think clearly. When you are afraid, you exaggerate danger. When you are stressed, you rush. When you feel embarrassed, you want to escape. These emotions are natural, but they are not reliable leaders. Emotions are like weather. They come and go, but if you let the weather control your decisions, your life will be unstable. The truth is, many people don't have a problem with their circumstances. They have a problem with their emotional reactions. Two people can face the same setback. One collapses, the other adapts. One panics, the other plans. One becomes bitter, the other becomes wiser. The difference is not the event. The difference is the response. Now let's be clear. This chapter is not about becoming cold or emotionless. That's not strength. That's suppression. Strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is the ability to feel emotion without being controlled by it. Strength is the ability to stay calm while your emotions are loud. Strength is being able to say, yes, I feel this, but I will not let this feeling decide my future. So how do you stop reacting? It begins with awareness. You must recognize your emotional triggers. Certain situations push your buttons quickly. Certain people can irritate you instantly. Certain failures can make you feel defeated in seconds. And if you don't recognize your triggers, you will continue to react the same way, again and again, like a predictable machine. But once you recognize the pattern, you can interrupt it. And the interruption is called the pause. The pause is one of the most powerful tools a human being can develop. The pause is that small moment between what happens and what you do next. And that moment may feel tiny, but it can save your life. Because in that pause you regain control. In that pause you stop being a slave to emotion. In that pause you become the leader of your own mind. When something happens that upsets you, train yourself to pause and breathe. Not dramatically. Just one deep breath. That breath is not a magic trick. It's a signal. It signals your nervous system to slow down. It signals your brain to shift from panic into thinking. It creates space. And in that space you ask yourself, what is the best response right now? Not the most emotional response. Not the response that feels satisfying. The best response. This is how mature people think. This is how strong people think. They don't ask, what do I feel like doing? They ask, what should I do? They ask, what response will improve this situation? They ask, what response will protect my future? Because reacting may feel good for a moment, but it often creates long-term damage. A reactive person says things they regret. A reactive person quits too early. A reactive person destroys relationships. A reactive person makes decisions out of fear. And later, they wonder why life feels unstable. Let me say it clearly. If you cannot control your reactions, you cannot control your results. Now, another important part of responding is learning to separate the event from the meaning you attach to it. Many people suffer not because of what happened, but because of what they assume it means. A friend doesn't call back, and you assume disrespect. A business deal fails, and you assume you're a failure. Someone criticizes you, and you assume you're not good enough. But those are stories, not facts. Those are interpretations, not reality. A solution-focused person trains themselves to ask, what is actually happening here? Not what their emotions are shouting, not what their ego is screaming. What is actually happening? This is powerful because when you see the situation clearly, you can respond wisely. But when you see the situation emotionally, you respond blindly. Sometimes the best response is silence. Sometimes the best response is patience. Sometimes the best response is to walk away and think. Sometimes the best response is to forgive and move forward. Sometimes the best response is to take immediate action. But you cannot know the best response unless you slow down long enough to choose it. And here is something else you must understand. Life will test you. Life will provoke you. Life will challenge you. There will always be pressure. There will always be unexpected setbacks. The world is not going to become calmer just because you want peace. That's why you must become calmer. That's why you must train your response. Your future depends on it. A person who responds instead of reacts becomes dangerous in a good way, because they cannot be manipulated easily. They cannot be controlled by insults. They cannot be broken by temporary setbacks. They remain steady. They remain focused. They remain strategic. And strategy is where solutions are born. So starting today, make this your practice. When something triggers you, pause. When something frustrates you, pause. When something scares you, pause. Breathe. Step back mentally. And ask yourself, what response will move me forward? Because your life is not shaped by what happens to you. Your life is shaped by how you respond to what happens. Stop reacting, start responding, and you will begin to think like a person who always finds a way. Chapter 5. Own the problem without blaming yourself. If you want to become a solution-focused person, you must understand one of the most important lessons in personal growth. Responsibility is power, not punishment, not shame. Power. The moment you take ownership of a problem, you take control of the direction your life is going. And the moment you refuse ownership, you may feel relieved for a second, but you lose something far more valuable. Your ability to change the outcome. Now this is where many people get confused. They think responsibility means blaming yourself. They think it means saying, everything is my fault. And because that feels heavy, they avoid responsibility altogether. But that is not wisdom. That is fear. There is a difference between responsibility and self-hatred. A big difference. Blame says, I am the problem. Responsibility says, I will handle the problem. Blame destroys your confidence. Responsibility builds your strength. Blame makes you feel stuck. Responsibility makes you feel capable. And if you don't understand this difference, you will either live as a victim or live as someone who constantly beats themselves down. Both mindsets are traps. Let's be honest. Life is not always fair. Sometimes you didn't cause the problem. Sometimes someone else made a mistake. Sometimes you were treated unfairly. Sometimes circumstances hit you out of nowhere. But here is the truth that separates strong people from weak people. Even if you didn't create the problem, it is still your responsibility to solve it, because no one else is coming to do it for you. That statement may sound harsh, but it is also freeing, because the moment you accept that, you stop waiting. You stop hoping someone will rescue you. You stop expecting life to be gentle, and you start becoming the person who handles things, the person who adapts, the person who takes action. Now, the reason responsibility is so powerful is because it forces the mind to shift. When you blame others, your mind stays stuck on the past. It stays focused on what happened, who did it, and why it was unfair. But when you take responsibility, your mind shifts toward the future. It starts asking, what can I do now? And that question is the beginning of solution thinking. There is something important you need to realize. Blaming feels good in the short term. It gives you emotional comfort. It gives you a temporary excuse. It makes you feel justified. But it also makes you powerless. Because if someone else is the reason your life is broken, then someone else must be the reason your life gets fixed. And that is a dangerous way to live. Responsibility is uncomfortable at first, because it removes excuses. It forces you to face reality. But it also gives you control, and control is what you really want. Now let's talk about the second part of this chapter, owning the problem without blaming yourself. This is critical because many people take responsibility the wrong way. They take responsibility by attacking themselves. They say, I'm so stupid. I always mess things up. I'll never get it right. And they think that harsh self-talk will motivate them. But it doesn't. It weakens them. It drains energy. It creates fear. And fear creates avoidance. You cannot build a solution-focused mind if your mind is constantly tearing you down. So what should you do instead? You must learn to take responsibility like a leader. A leader doesn't collapse into shame. A leader doesn't cry over every mistake. A leader says, "This happened. It's not ideal, but I will deal with it. I will learn. I will adjust. I will improve." That is the mindset of progress. A solution-focused person is not someone who never fails. It is someone who refuses to stay down. They treat failure as feedback, not as identity. They treat mistakes as lessons, not as life sentences. They don't deny their flaws, but they don't worship them either. Here is a powerful practice you can start using. When something goes wrong, instead of blaming others or blaming yourself, ask this question: what part of this can I improve? Not who is at fault, but what can I improve? That question immediately shifts your mind into builder mode. Maybe you need to improve your planning. Maybe you need to improve your discipline. Maybe you need to improve your communication. Maybe you need to improve your patience. Maybe you need to improve your boundaries. But there is always something you can improve, and improvement is the road to solutions. Another strong question is, what is my responsibility in this situation? Notice the wording, not what is my fault, but what is my responsibility? That question removes shame and replaces it with direction. And once you find your responsibility, you take action. Not big action all at once, but the next step, the next phone call, the next plan, the next decision, the next attempt. Because responsibility without action is just a speech. Responsibility must become movement. Now you might be thinking, but what if I've made a lot of mistakes? What if I've wasted time? What if I've ruined opportunities? Listen carefully. Regret is only useful if it turns into wisdom. If regret turns into self-hatred, it becomes poison. But if regret turns into responsibility, it becomes fuel. You cannot change what you did yesterday, but you can change what you do today. You cannot undo mistakes, but you can outgrow them. And the fastest way to outgrow them is to stop blaming and start building. Let me tell you something that will change your perspective. The strongest people are not those who had the easiest lives. The strongest people are those who decided, at some point, that they were done with excuses, done with blaming, done with self-pity. They looked at their life honestly and said, "This is my life, and I will take control of it." That decision is the birth of a solution-focused mind. So from this moment forward, practice ownership. Own your actions, own your choices, own your habits, own your future. But do it with strength, not with shame. Do it like a mentor, speaking to yourself, not like an enemy, attacking yourself. Because when you own the problem without blaming yourself, you become the kind of person who can solve anything. You become the kind of person who doesn't break under pressure. You become the kind of person who doesn't waste time explaining why things are hard. You simply handle it, and that is real power. Chapter 6. Break the addiction to negative thinking. Negative thinking is not always a choice in the beginning. Sometimes it feels automatic, like a reflex. Something goes wrong, and your mind immediately jumps to the worst conclusion. You hear bad news, and your thoughts start racing. You face uncertainty, and your brain begins building disaster scenarios. And many people assume this is just who they are. They say, "I'm just an overthinker," or "I'm naturally pessimistic," or "I can't help it." But here is the truth. Negative thinking is often an addiction, not a chemical addiction like a drug, but a mental addiction, a habit of attention, a pattern of thinking that your mind returns to because it has practiced it for years. And just like any addiction, it grows stronger through repetition. The mind becomes addicted to negativity because negativity feels urgent. It feels important. It feels like protection. The brain believes that by focusing on danger, It is keeping you safe. It believes that worrying prepares you. It believes that expecting disappointment prevents pain. But that is a lie your mind tells you, because worry does not prepare you. Worry drains you. Pessimism does not protect you. Pessimism weakens you. And once negativity becomes your default setting, you begin to live in a mental prison without bars. You can be in a safe room, but your mind is in a battlefield. You can be surrounded by opportunities, but your mind only sees obstacles. You can be moving forward, but your mind keeps whispering that you will fail. That is not reality. That is conditioning. Now, the first step to breaking the addiction is to understand how it works. Negative thinking is often reinforced by emotional rewards. That might sound strange, but it's true. Complaining can feel relieving. Worrying can feel like you're doing something. Playing the victim can bring sympathy. Being negative can make you feel smarter, because you believe you're seeing the truth. Even expecting the worst can give your ego a false sense of control. So negativity becomes comfortable, familiar, predictable, and the mind loves what is familiar, even if it is harmful. That's why some people will leave a peaceful moment and immediately create stress in their head. They will find something to worry about. They will replay something embarrassing. They will imagine a future problem, because the mind is restless. It wants drama. It wants noise. It wants stimulation. And negativity provides that stimulation. But here's the danger. Every time you repeat a negative thought, you strengthen it. You are building a mental road, and the more you travel that road, the easier it becomes to travel again. Eventually, you don't even choose it. You just end up there. So let's make something clear. Your mind is not broken. It is trained. And anything trained can be retrained. The next step is learning to catch negativity early. Most people try to stop negative thinking when it is already out of control. They wait until they are overwhelmed, anxious, angry, or depressed. But by then, the mind is already deep in the storm. Instead, you must catch negativity when it is still small, when it is just a sentence in your mind, when it is just a thought beginning to form. A solution-focused person learns to recognize the beginning of the pattern. They notice when their mind starts saying, "This is going to be a disaster." They notice when it starts saying, "Nothing ever works for me." They notice when it starts predicting failure. And the moment they notice, they interrupt it. This interruption is powerful, because you cannot stop a thought from appearing, but you can stop it from becoming a belief. And beliefs shape behavior. So when a negative thought appears, don't panic. Don't fight it emotionally. Simply label it. Say to yourself, "That's fear talking," or "That's my old habit again," or "That's my mind looking for drama." Labeling it creates distance. It reminds you that you are not the thought. You are the one observing the thought. And once you create distance, you can choose a better direction. Now here is the key to breaking negative thinking. You must replace it. Not suppress it, replace it. Because if you simply try to force negativity away, it often returns stronger. But if you replace it with better thinking, you begin building a new mental habit. Replacement does not mean fake positivity. It does not mean lying to yourself. It means balanced thinking. It means disciplined thinking. It means shifting from emotional exaggeration to practical reality. For example, instead of saying, "This is hopeless," you say, "This is difficult, but I can handle the next step." Instead of saying, "I'm going to fail," you say, "I might struggle, but I will learn and improve." Instead of saying, "Nothing is working," you say, "Something can work if I keep adjusting." That is not fantasy. That is strength. Now, another way to break negative addiction is to reduce the sources feeding it. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you water grows. If you constantly consume negativity, negative news, negative conversations, negative entertainment, toxic people, your mind will naturally produce negative thoughts. It's not even your fault. It's input. So be honest. What are you feeding your mind every day? Who are you spending time with? What are you listening to? What kind of content are you absorbing? Because you cannot expect a positive mind from negative fuel. You must protect your mental environment. If you want a solution-focused mindset, you must stop surrounding yourself with problem-focused energy. This doesn't mean you abandon everyone, but it means you stop letting negativity become your daily diet. And finally, you must train yourself to focus on progress. Progress is the cure for negativity. When you take action, your mind becomes stronger. When you move forward, your confidence grows. When you solve even a small part of a problem, your brain begins to trust you again. Negativity often grows when you are inactive, when you sit still too long, when you think too much and do too little. That's why the solution-focused person becomes action-oriented. They don't wait to feel better. They act their way into feeling better. So starting today, stop treating negative thinking like your identity. It is not who you are. It is what you have practiced, and what you have practiced can be changed. Break the addiction, break the habit, break the pattern, because the more you train your mind to think in solutions, the more your life begins to feel lighter, clearer, and stronger. Not because problems disappear, but because you stop letting negativity control the way you see your world. Chapter 7. Train yourself to think in options. When life hits you with a problem, your mind often wants to do one of two things. It wants to panic, or it wants to freeze. It wants to either run emotionally or shut down completely. And the reason this happens is simple. Most people believe they have no options. They look at the situation and feel trapped. They see only one outcome, one path, one ending. And when the mind feels trapped, fear takes over. But a solution-focused person lives by a different rule. They don't ask, "Why is this happening?" They ask, "What are my options?" And that question is powerful because it forces the mind to expand. It forces the brain to open doors instead of staring at walls. Options create hope. Options create control. Options create movement. And movement is where solutions are born. Here's a truth you need to hear clearly. You are rarely as stuck as you think. Most of the time, you are not trapped by the situation. You are trapped by the way you are thinking about the situation. You are trapped because you keep repeating the same limited thoughts, the same fears, the same assumptions. And when you assume there is no way out, your mind stops searching. But the mind is designed to search. The mind is designed to solve. You just have to give it the right command. So let's talk about the difference between a weak mind and a strong mind. A weak mind looks at a problem and says, "I don't know what to do." A strong mind looks at a problem and says, "There has to be a way." That sentence alone can change your entire life. Because the moment you believe there has to be a way, you begin looking. And when you begin looking, you begin finding. Now, thinking in options does not mean every option is good. It doesn't mean you will always win. It doesn't mean you can control everything. It simply means you stop acting like your situation has only one ending. Because when you believe there is only one ending, you surrender too early. A person who thinks in options becomes creative. They become strategic. They become flexible. And flexibility is one of the greatest strengths a human being can develop. Because life changes constantly. Plans break. People disappoint. Opportunities shift. And the person who can adapt is the person who survives and succeeds. So how do you train yourself to think in options? You start by practicing a simple habit. Whenever you face a challenge, force yourself to list at least 3 possible moves, not 1, 3. Even if the options are not perfect, even if the options feel uncomfortable, even if the options seem small, the goal is not perfection. The goal is expansion, because the mind has a habit of locking onto one fear-based thought. It says, this is impossible. It says, this won't work. It says, I have no choice. And once that thought takes over, your mind becomes blind to everything else. But when you force yourself to list 3 options, you break the blindness. Let's say you're struggling financially. The problem-focused mind says, I'm broke. The solution-focused mind says, what are my options? Option 1, reduce expenses. Option 2, find extra income. Option 3, learn a new skill. Option 4, start a small service. Option 5, ask for mentorship. Suddenly you're not trapped. You have a path. It may not be easy, but you have direction. Let's say you're overwhelmed with responsibilities. The problem-focused mind says, I can't handle this. The solution-focused mind says, what are my options? Option 1, prioritize the most important tasks. Option 2, delegate something. Option 3, remove unnecessary commitments. Option 4, create a schedule. Option 5, take a break and return with clarity. Again, the situation didn't change, but your power returned because you created choices. This is why thinking in options is so important. It gives your mind something to work with. It stops emotional paralysis. Now here is something else you must understand. Sometimes the best option is not the easiest option. Sometimes the best option is the uncomfortable one. And most people avoid uncomfortable options because they want a quick escape. They want relief. They want the easiest road. But the easiest road often keeps you stuck. A solution-focused person is willing to choose discomfort if it leads to growth. They are willing to do the hard conversation. They are willing to make the hard decision. They are willing to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term freedom. So part of thinking in options is being honest. Being honest about what you've been avoiding. Because sometimes the reason you feel stuck is because you refuse to choose the option that requires courage. Maybe the option is to discipline yourself. Maybe the option is to stop wasting time. Maybe the option is to leave a toxic environment. Maybe the option is to admit you need help. Maybe the option is to start over. But if you refuse to face those options, you will continue to feel trapped. Now another powerful part of option thinking is asking yourself, what would a stronger version of me do right now? That question is a game changer because it shifts you out of emotional thinking and into identity thinking. It forces you to step outside your current weakness and imagine a higher standard. The stronger version of you would not panic. The stronger version of you would not complain for days. The stronger version of you would not quit because it's uncomfortable. The stronger version of you would choose the best option, even if it hurts. And when you repeatedly choose like that, you begin becoming that person. Also remember this, options don't always appear instantly. Sometimes you have to create them. And that is what makes solution-focused people different. They don't wait for life to hand them choices. They build choices through action. They build skills. They build connections. They build discipline. They build habits. And those things create options. A person with no discipline has fewer options. A person with no skills has fewer options. A person with no savings has fewer options. A person with no patience has fewer options. But the more you develop yourself, the more doors open. So from today forward, train yourself to think in options. When something goes wrong, don't say, I'm stuck. Say, what are my options? When you feel overwhelmed, don't say, I can't. Say, what are my possible moves? When fear rises, don't surrender to it. Expand your thinking, because life rewards people who can adapt. Life rewards people who can pivot. Life rewards people who can find another way when the first way fails. And when you train yourself to think in options, you stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your outcomes. Chapter 8. Shrink every problem into the next step. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck is not because their problems are too big. It's because they try to solve the entire problem all at once. They look at the whole mountain and immediately feel overwhelmed. They look at everything that needs to be fixed, everything that went wrong, everything that could go wrong, and their mind collapses under the weight of it. Then they freeze, they delay, they procrastinate, and they tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready. But readiness doesn't come before action. Readiness comes from action. Here is the truth. Big problems are rarely solved in one dramatic moment. They are solved through small steps taken consistently. The person who wins is not the person who has the biggest motivation. The person who wins is the person who knows how to break the problem down and take the next step, even when they don't feel like it. Because progress is not built by intensity. Progress is built by consistency. Most people overestimate what they can do in one day and underestimate what they can do in 1 year. They want immediate change. They want a quick solution. They want everything to be fixed instantly. But life doesn't work that way. Life rewards those who can stay steady and keep moving. So if you want to become solution-focused, you must learn a skill that will save you from mental collapse. You must learn to shrink the problem. Shrinking the problem doesn't mean denying it. It doesn't mean pretending it's small. It means turning something overwhelming into something manageable. It means taking the big storm in your mind and turning it into a clear list of steps. And it begins with one simple mindset. Stop trying to solve your whole life. Solve the next step. Let's say you're facing financial trouble. Your mind might scream, I need to fix everything. But that thought is too heavy. It has no direction. It creates panic. A solution-focused mind says, what is my next step? Maybe the next step is to write down your expenses. Maybe the next step is to call someone about a payment plan. Maybe the next step is to apply for a job. Maybe the next step is to sell something. The next step is not the full solution, but it is the beginning of the solution. And the beginning is everything. Because once you take the first step, the fog begins to clear. Once you take action, you regain control. Once you move, you stop feeling helpless. Overwhelm is often a sign that your mind is trying to carry too much at once. It's like holding too many bags in your hands. You don't need stronger hands. You need to put some bags down and pick them up one by one. That is what this chapter is about. Learning to carry life one step at a time. Now, one of the best ways to shrink a problem is to define it clearly. Many people feel overwhelmed because they don't even know what the real problem is. They just feel pressure. They feel anxiety. They feel stress. But those are emotions, not definitions. So ask yourself, what exactly is the problem? Be specific, not emotional. Specific. Instead of saying, my life is falling apart, say, I am behind on rent. Instead of saying, everything is a mess, say, I have too many unfinished tasks. Instead of saying, I'm failing, say, I'm not consistent with my habits. When you define the problem clearly, you reduce its size. You take it out of the dark and put it under a light. Then you ask the next question. What is the smallest step I can take right now? Not the biggest, not the most heroic. The smallest, because small steps create momentum, and momentum creates confidence. A lot of people wait until they feel confident to take action, but confidence is not the starting point. Confidence is the reward. Confidence is what you earn after you move. So if you want confidence, you must act first. Now here is where many people get stuck. They think small steps are too small to matter. They think, this won't change anything. But that is the voice of impatience. That is the voice that wants instant transformation, and impatience is one of the greatest enemies of success. Small steps matter because they keep you moving, and movement is life. If you're trying to build discipline, the next step might be getting up on time. If you're trying to improve your health, the next step might be drinking more water today. If you're trying to start a business, the next step might be writing down your idea and researching for 30 minutes. If you're trying to heal from a setback, the next step might be forgiving yourself and focusing on what you can do now. The next step is always within reach, always, and once you take it, the next step becomes clearer, then the next, then the next. This is how people rebuild their lives, not with one perfect day, but with many small days stacked together. Let me tell you something powerful. Your life changes when your daily actions change. Not your thoughts alone, not your hopes, not your intentions, your actions. And the easiest way to change your actions is to make them small enough to start. That's why this chapter is so important, because the world is full of people who have dreams, but they never start. They keep waiting for the right moment. They keep waiting for the perfect plan. They keep waiting for the fear to disappear. But the right moment is created, not found. So when life feels heavy, don't try to carry the entire weight of the future. Carry today. Carry the next step. And if today feels too heavy, carry the next hour. Carry the next decision. Carry the next task. Because the mind that focuses on the next step is the mind that keeps moving forward. A solution-focused person doesn't ask, how will I fix everything? They ask, what can I do next? And that question becomes a bridge out of chaos. So from this moment forward, practice this discipline. When you feel overwhelmed, pause, breathe, define the real problem, then choose the next step, not the perfect step. The next step, because step by step is how problems shrink. Step by step is how confidence grows. Step by step is how solutions appear. And step by step is how a person becomes unstoppable. Chapter 9. Speak like a builder, not a victim. The words you speak are not just sounds, they are commands, they are signals. They are instructions you give to your own mind. And whether you realize it or not, your language is shaping your life every single day. Not only the words you say out loud to other people, but the words you whisper inside your own head when nobody is listening. Because your inner voice becomes your inner world. If you want to train your mind to focus on solutions instead of problems, you must learn to speak like a builder. A builder sees what is possible. A builder sees what can be fixed. A builder looks at damage and says, this can be repaired. But a victim speaks differently. A victim uses language that keeps them trapped. A victim speaks as if life is always happening to them, and they are powerless to change it. And here's the danger. You can be a hard-working person and still speak like a victim. You can have good intentions and still use language that weakens you, because language is often unconscious. It becomes habit, and habits shape identity. Think about how many people casually say things like, I can't, it's impossible, that's just how I am. I'm not lucky, nothing works for me. I always mess things up. They might say it jokingly, but the mind doesn't treat it like a joke. The mind treats repetition like truth. And when you repeatedly speak weakness, you train yourself to believe weakness. This is why two people can face the same problem and have completely different outcomes. One speaks with power, The other speaks with defeat. One says, "I'll find a way." The other says, "I'm done." One says, "This is hard, but I'll handle it." The other says, "This always happens to me." Same life, different language, different future. So let's be clear, your words matter. Your words shape your confidence. Your words shape your decisions. Your words shape your emotional state. And your words shape the way you interpret reality. When you speak like a victim, you feed the problem. When you speak like a builder, you feed the solution. Now, speaking like a builder doesn't mean you pretend everything is fine. It doesn't mean you lie. It doesn't mean you fake positivity. It means you speak with responsibility. You speak with direction. You speak in a way that leads your mind forward instead of pulling it backward. A victim says, "This ruined everything." A builder says, "This is a setback, but I can recover." A victim says, "I can't do it." A builder says, "I don't know how yet, but I will learn." A victim says, "I have no choice." A builder says, "I may not like the options, but I will choose the best one." That difference may seem small, but it changes how the mind functions, because language is not only expression, language is programming. The brain responds to the words you repeat. If you constantly repeat hopeless language, your brain stops searching for solutions. It shuts down. It goes into survival mode. But if you speak with possibility, your brain wakes up. It starts looking for opportunities. It begins problem solving again. So here is one of the most powerful habits you can develop. Stop using absolute victim language. Words like always, never, nothing, everything, and impossible are mental poison. They exaggerate reality and make the situation feel bigger than it is. When you say, "I always fail," you destroy your motivation. When you say, "Nothing works," you kill your creativity. When you say, "I'll never change," you block growth before it begins. These are not facts. These are emotional conclusions, and emotional conclusions are often wrong. Instead, speak with accuracy. Speak with truth. Speak with control. Replace "I always fail" with "I've failed before, but I can improve." Replace "nothing works" with "I haven't found the right strategy yet." Replace "I can't" with "I'm struggling, but I'll try again." Replace "this is impossible" with "this is difficult, but I will find a way forward." Do you feel the difference? That's not fake positivity. That's disciplined thinking. Now let's talk about something deeper. The way you speak about your problems becomes the way you experience your problems. If you describe everything as a disaster, your nervous system reacts like it's a disaster. Your body becomes tense. Your mind becomes scattered. Your sleep becomes restless. Your confidence drops. But if you describe the situation as a challenge, your mind stays calmer. Your body stays steadier. Your decisions become clearer. This is why strong people use strong language, not loud language. Strong language. They don't say, "I'm overwhelmed." They say, "I have a lot to handle, but I'll prioritize." They don't say, "I'm stuck." They say, "I need a new approach." They don't say, "I'm broken." They say, "I'm healing." They don't say, "I'm finished." They say, "I'm rebuilding." That is builder language, and builder language creates builder results. Now here is the next level. You must also watch the language you use when talking about yourself, because many people insult themselves daily without realizing it. They call themselves lazy. They call themselves dumb. They call themselves unlucky. They call themselves a failure. They think they are being realistic, but they are actually destroying their own identity. If you want to build a solution-focused mind, you must stop speaking to yourself like an enemy. You must speak to yourself like a coach. A coach is honest, but encouraging. A coach corrects but also believes. A coach says, You can do better. Now try again. So when you make a mistake, don't say, I'm useless. Say, that was a mistake, but I can fix it. When you fall off track, don't say, I never stay consistent. Say, I slipped, but I'm getting back on track today. That's the language of progress. And over time, your language becomes your identity. Your identity becomes your habits, and your habits become your life. So from this moment forward, choose your words like a person who is building something, because you are. You are building your future. You are building your mindset. You are building your character. Speak like a builder. Speak like someone who refuses to be defeated. Speak like someone who expects solutions to exist. Speak like someone who is willing to work until they find the way. Because when you change your language, you change your thinking. And when you change your thinking, you change what becomes possible. Chapter 10. Replace complaints with constructive action. Complaining is one of the most common habits on earth. And it is also one of the most destructive, not because it is evil, not because people should never express frustration, but because complaining trains the mind to stay stuck. It teaches your brain to focus on what is wrong without ever moving toward what is right. And the longer you complain, the more natural it becomes. It becomes your default response. It becomes your comfort zone. It becomes your identity. A complaint feels harmless in the moment. It even feels relieving. You let out the frustration. You speak the pain. You tell someone how unfair life is. But here's the problem. Complaining gives you the illusion that you are doing something, when in reality, you are doing nothing. You are spending energy, but you are not creating progress. And energy without progress becomes exhaustion. That is why some people feel tired all the time, not because they are working too hard, but because they are emotionally draining themselves with constant negative focus. They complain about the job, complain about the weather, complain about the past, complain about people, complain about how difficult life is. And after all that complaining, the problem is still there. The situation is still the same, but now their mind is weaker. This is why a solution-focused person treats complaining like a warning sign, not a personality trait, a warning sign, because every complaint is a signal that something needs to change, something needs to be adjusted, something needs to be handled. And the moment you recognize that, you can turn the complaint into something powerful, constructive action. Now let's be honest. Everyone complains sometimes, even strong people, even disciplined people. The goal is not to become a robot who never feels frustration. The goal is to stop living in complaint mode. The goal is to stop turning frustration into a lifestyle. Because when complaining becomes your lifestyle, you become addicted to being unhappy. You become addicted to talking about what you don't like, instead of doing what you must do. Here is the truth. Complaining is easy. Action is hard. Complaining costs nothing. Action costs effort. Complaining makes you feel like you are right. Action forces you to grow. That is why so many people complain. It's comfortable, it's familiar, and it allows them to avoid responsibility. But if you want solutions, you must choose the harder path. You must choose action. So how do you replace complaining with constructive action? You start by catching yourself in the moment. The moment you notice you are complaining, pause, not later, not tomorrow, right now. Pause and ask yourself, what am I really complaining about? Get specific, because many complaints are vague. People say, my life is stressful, but they never define what is creating the stress. They say, everything is hard, but they never identify the real issue. So the first step is clarity. Once you define the complaint, you ask the next question, what can I do about it? This is where you shift from victim thinking into builder thinking. If you can do something, do it. If you can't do something, adjust your mindset and move forward. But don't stay stuck in the complaint. For example, if you keep complaining about your health, the solution is not more complaining. The solution is changing your habits. If you keep complaining about your finances, the solution is not repeating the frustration. The solution is budgeting, learning, building skills, earning more, or reducing waste. If you keep complaining about your lack of time, the solution is not blaming life. The solution is restructuring your priorities. Now, sometimes the complaint is valid. Sometimes the situation truly is unfair. But unfairness does not change the rule. Complaining does not fix it. Action fixes it. Strategy fixes it. Discipline fixes it. Another powerful habit is this: every time you catch yourself complaining, immediately turn it into a question. Instead of saying, "This is so hard," ask, "How can I make this easier?" Instead of saying, "I hate this job," ask, "What skill can I learn so I can upgrade my life?" Instead of saying, "I'm tired of being broke," ask, "What income opportunity can I create this month?" Instead of saying, "People don't respect me," ask, "What boundaries do I need to set?" Do you see what happens? Complaints keep you stuck. Questions move you forward. This is why the most successful people are not the ones with the fewest problems. They are the ones with the fewest complaints. They don't waste energy talking about what they hate. They spend energy building what they want. And you must understand something: complaining is contagious. When you complain constantly, you attract people who complain constantly. You create an environment of negativity. You create a culture of excuses. And once you are surrounded by that energy, it becomes even harder to stay solution-focused. That is why you must be careful about the conversations you participate in. Not every conversation needs your opinion. Not every frustration needs your voice. Sometimes silence is strength. Sometimes walking away is wisdom. If you want to protect your mind, you must protect what comes out of your mouth and what goes into your ears. Now let's talk about the deeper issue behind complaining. Complaining is often a way to avoid discomfort. People complain because they don't want to face the work. They complain because they don't want to take the risk. They complain because they don't want to make the hard decision. Complaining becomes a way to release pressure without changing anything. But if you keep releasing pressure without changing anything, your life stays the same. So here is a powerful mindset shift. Treat every complaint as a signal for action. When you feel the urge to complain, tell yourself, "This is my mind telling me something needs improvement." Then decide what you will do about it. Even a small action is enough. Make the phone call, write the plan, take the walk, clean the room, apply for the job, start the habit, have the conversation, take the next step. Because the moment you take action, you break the cycle. The moment you take action, you regain control. The moment you take action, you stop feeling like a victim. And over time you become the kind of person who doesn't waste energy complaining. You become the kind of person who builds quietly. You become the kind of person who fixes what can be fixed and accepts what must be accepted. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to talk about problems all day, because your focus is on progress. So starting today, make this a rule: no complaint without a plan. No frustration without a next step. No negativity without a decision. That is how you transform complaining into power. Because the world is full of people who complain, but the world belongs to those who take action. Chapter 11. Solve what you can, release what you can't. One of the greatest sources of stress in human life is trying to control what cannot be controlled. People exhaust themselves fighting reality. They argue with the past. They wrestle with other people's choices. They replay conversations, trying to rewrite them. They worry about the future, as if worrying could prevent pain. And day after day, they lose energy, not because life is too heavy, but because they are carrying what was never theirs to carry. If you want to become solution-focused, you must learn one of the most powerful mental disciplines: solve what you can and release what you can't. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. A weak person avoids problems they can solve. A wise person releases problems they cannot solve. And a strong person knows the difference. That difference is what creates peace. That difference is what creates clarity. That difference is what makes a mind stable in an unstable world. Because here's the truth: not every problem is meant to be solved. Some problems are meant to be accepted. Some situations are meant to be endured. Some people are not meant to be convinced. Some outcomes are not meant to be forced. And the moment you accept that, you stop wasting energy in useless battles. Many people live their entire lives in emotional resistance. They keep saying, "This shouldn't have happened." They keep saying, "People shouldn't act like this." They keep saying, "Life should be fair." But life does not move based on what should be. Life moves based on what is. And if you want to live with strength, you must stop arguing with reality and start working with reality. Now, let's make this practical. There are two categories in every situation: things you can control and things you cannot control. You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control your habits. You can control your response. You can control your response. You can control your decisions. You can control the way you speak, the way you think, and the actions you take. But you cannot control other people's emotions. You cannot control their character. You cannot control whether they appreciate you. You cannot control whether they stay loyal. You cannot control the past. You cannot control the timing of life. You cannot control every obstacle that appears. You cannot control every unexpected change. And the mistake most people make is this: they ignore what they can control, and they obsess over what they can't. They spend hours worrying about people who don't respect them instead of building self-respect. They spend days stressing about bad luck instead of improving their skills. They spend years blaming the past instead of shaping the future. They lose their energy in the wrong direction. A solution-focused person does not do that. They ask a powerful question: what is within my control right now? That question is like a flashlight in the dark. It immediately shows you where your power is. And once you see where your power is, you stop wasting time in areas where you have none. Now, releasing what you can't control does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering unnecessarily. It means you stop bleeding your energy into things that will not change no matter how much you worry. It means you stop giving your peace away to situations you cannot fix. This is one of the hardest lessons for people to learn, because the ego wants control. The ego wants guarantees. The ego wants certainty. But life does not give guarantees. Life gives uncertainty. And the mature mind learns how to live inside uncertainty without collapsing. That is true strength. Let me say something that may challenge you. Sometimes you are stressed, not because the situation is unbearable, but because you are refusing to accept what is true. You are refusing to accept that a relationship ended. You are refusing to accept that someone disappointed you. You are refusing to accept that a plan failed. You are refusing to accept that life has changed. And as long as you refuse acceptance, you stay in suffering. Acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is the starting point of intelligent action. Because when you accept reality, you stop wasting time in denial. You stop wishing things were different. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And you start focusing on what can actually be done. Now, there is another important part of this chapter. Releasing what you can't control requires trust. Not blind trust in life, but trust in yourself. Trust that you can handle what comes. Trust that even if things don't go perfectly, you will adapt. Trust that you don't need to control everything to move forward. Many people want to control everything because deep inside, they don't trust themselves. They fear uncertainty because they fear their own ability to handle pain. But once you begin building a stronger mindset, you stop needing control. You stop needing certainty because you know you will find a way. That is the mindset of a solution-focused person. So here is a powerful daily practice you can start using. When something stresses you, pause and ask yourself, can I control this? If the answer is yes, then act. Make the call, take the step, do the work. If the answer is no, then release. Not emotionally, not dramatically, but mentally. Release it, let it go. Say, this is not mine to control, and redirect your focus back to what you can do. This habit will save you from endless anxiety, because anxiety is often the mind's attempt to control the future. It is your brain trying to predict and prevent every possible pain, but the future cannot be controlled that way. The future is shaped through preparation, not panic. So prepare, improve yourself, build your habits, strengthen your skills, save your money, protect your health, develop your discipline. Those are things you can control. Those are things that create security. And when you focus on those things, you naturally become calmer. A person who focuses on what they can control becomes unstoppable because their energy is no longer scattered. Their energy is no longer wasted. Their energy is directed. They are not fighting imaginary battles in their mind. They are not trying to control other people. They are not stuck in the past. They are building their future. So from today forward, stop carrying what isn't yours. Stop trying to fix what you cannot fix. Stop trying to control what will never obey you. And start focusing on what is within your hands, within your mind, within your habits. Solve what you can, release what you can't, because peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of control over your own mind. And that is what this audiobook is training you to master. Chapter 12. Stay calm when life gets loud. Pressure has a way of revealing who you truly are. When life is calm, almost anyone can think clearly. When things are going well, almost anyone can stay positive. But when life gets loud, when problems stack up, when people demand answers, when deadlines close in, when money feels tight, when plans fall apart, that is when your mindset is tested. That is when your habits of thinking show their true strength or their true weakness. And if you want to become a solution-focused person, you must master one skill above many others, the ability to stay calm under pressure. Because panic does not solve problems. Panic multiplies them. A calm mind sees options. A calm mind makes decisions. A calm mind stays patient enough to find the next step. But a panicked mind becomes blind. It rushes. It assumes the worst. It speaks too quickly. It acts too emotionally. And once you make decisions in panic, you often create damage that lasts longer than the original problem. That's why calmness is not just a personality trait. Calmness is a discipline. Calmness is a trained response. Calmness is a form of strength. Now, let's be honest. Staying calm is not easy when life hits hard. When you feel overwhelmed, your body reacts. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your thoughts race. You feel tension in your chest. You feel restless. You feel like you need to do something immediately, even if you don't know what to do. That is your nervous system reacting to perceived danger. And in many cases, the danger is not physical. It's emotional, it's financial, it's social, it's uncertainty. But the body responds as if you are in a fight for survival. So the first step to staying calm is understanding that stress is a signal, not a command. Stress is your body saying, pay attention, but it doesn't mean fall apart. It doesn't mean lose control. It doesn't mean give up. It simply means something matters. Now here is where most people make their biggest mistake. They treat stress like an emergency. They assume that because they feel anxious, the situation must be hopeless. They assume that because they feel fear, the outcome must be bad. But emotions are not facts. Emotions are messengers. And if you treat emotions like facts, you will make foolish decisions. A calm person does not deny their emotions. They acknowledge them. Then they lead themselves through them. They don't say, I'm not afraid. They say, I feel fear, but I will still think clearly. They don't say, I'm not stressed. They say, I am stressed, but I will not rush. That is emotional maturity. That is mental leadership. So how do you stay calm when life gets loud? You begin by slowing down your body, because the body and mind are connected. When the body is tense, the mind becomes tense. When the body is rushed, the mind becomes rushed. That's why calmness often begins with something simple, breathing. Not because breathing magically fixes problems, but because breathing tells your nervous system, we are safe enough to think. One deep breath can create a small pause. 2 deep breaths can create space. 3 deep breaths can shift your mind out of panic and back into clarity. And once you return to clarity, you can respond instead of react. Next, you must practice what I call mental narrowing. When life gets loud, the mind tries to think about everything at once. It thinks about the past, the future, the worst-case scenario, and every possible failure. That creates overwhelm. So instead of thinking about everything, you narrow your focus to one question. What is the most important thing I need to handle right now? Not everything, right now. This is the calm person's mindset. Calm people don't solve 10 problems at once. They solve one problem at a time. They prioritize. They focus. They move step by step. They don't allow their mind to scatter in panic. Another powerful discipline is controlling your environment when you feel pressured. When you're stressed, noise becomes more dangerous. Too many conversations, too many opinions, too much information can make you unstable. That's why you must learn to step away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to take 10 minutes alone, away from the chaos, to think clearly. A calm person knows when to step back. Now, let's talk about something deeper. Staying calm requires trust in your ability to handle the situation. Many people panic because deep down they don't believe they can survive the challenge. They don't believe they can recover. They don't believe they can adapt. So the mind starts screaming, this is the end. But when you have built mental strength, you stop seeing problems as the end. You see them as part of the journey. You start saying, I've handled hard things before. You start saying, this is difficult, but I will find a way. You start saying, I don't need to know the whole solution right now. I just need the next step. And that mindset creates calm. Calmness is not passive. Calmness is active control. Calmness is a decision to not let fear hijack your thinking. Calmness is saying, I will not let this moment destroy my future. Now, let me give you another powerful rule. When life gets loud, slow your words down. Many people talk too fast when stressed. They explain too much. They defend themselves. They argue. They react. And the more they talk, the more they fuel the chaos. A calm person speaks slowly. They speak clearly. They speak with purpose. And sometimes they don't speak at all. They listen. They observe. They gather information. They stay composed. That is strength. Also remember this. The loudest moment is not always the most important moment. Sometimes life feels urgent, but it's not urgent. Sometimes pressure is created by emotion, not by reality. So before you rush, ask yourself, is this truly urgent, or am I just feeling urgency? That question can save you from unnecessary mistakes, because solutions are not found in rush. Solutions are found in patience and clarity. So from today forward, train yourself to stay calm, not because life will always be peaceful, but because you want to be powerful. You want to be steady. You want to be the kind of person who can handle chaos without collapsing. Life will get loud. That is guaranteed. But when your mind stays calm, your decisions stay sharp. And when your decisions stay sharp, you begin to solve problems that used to defeat you. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control, and control is the foundation of every solution-focused life. Chapter 13. Turn setbacks into strategy. A setback is not the end of your journey. It is information. It is feedback. It is a signal that something needs to change, something needs to improve, or something needs to be learned. But most people don't see setbacks that way. They see setbacks as proof that they are unlucky, proof that they are not good enough, proof that life is against them. And because they interpret setbacks emotionally, they stop moving forward. But the solution-focused person lives by a different belief. Every setback can become a strategy. Now, let's be honest. Setbacks hurt. Failure hurts. Rejection hurts. Losing time hurts. Watching a plan collapse hurts. Nobody enjoys those moments. And you don't need to pretend you enjoy them. But what you must learn is how to use them. Because the truth is, you will never build a great life without setbacks. Never. Every meaningful journey includes struggle. Every strong person has been tested. Every success story has chapters of disappointment that most people never see. So the question is not, will I face setbacks? The question is, what will I do with them? The average person wastes setbacks. They waste them by complaining. They waste them by quitting. They waste them by blaming. They waste them by falling into self-pity. But the disciplined person studies setbacks. They analyze them. They extract lessons. They adjust their approach. They turn pain into progress. That is the mindset you must develop. Here is the first rule of turning setbacks into strategy. Stop making it personal. Many people interpret every failure as an attack on their identity. They fail once and say, I'm a failure. They get rejected and say, I'm not worthy. They lose a chance and say, I always ruin everything. That is not reality. That is emotional exaggeration. A setback is an event, not a definition. A setback simply means something didn't work the way you wanted. That's all. It doesn't mean you are finished. It doesn't mean you are broken. It doesn't mean you are incapable. It means you need to adjust. And adjustment is the beginning of strategy. The second rule is this: separate the outcome from the effort. Sometimes you did your best and still failed. That happens. Life is not a machine. You can do everything right and still face difficulty. But even in those situations, the setback still has value. It teaches you patience. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you humility. It teaches you how to stay calm when results don't come quickly. And those lessons are priceless. Now the third rule is to ask the right questions after a setback. Not emotional questions like, why does life hate me? But strategic questions like, what went wrong? What did I overlook? What should I do differently next time? What did this experience teach me? What weakness did this reveal? These questions transform failure into education. And education is what builds winners. A solution-focused person treats life like training. They don't just go through experiences, they learn from experiences. They don't just suffer pain, they convert pain into wisdom. They don't just endure mistakes, they use mistakes as guidance. Now this is important. Most people repeat the same mistakes because they never study them. They fail and immediately distract themselves. They fail and immediately blame someone else. They fail and immediately quit. But when you quit too quickly, you never learn the lesson. And when you never learn the lesson, life repeats the test. That's why some people feel like they are stuck in the same cycle year after year. It's not because life is unfair, it's because they keep repeating the same thinking. They keep repeating the same habits. And the setback keeps coming back until they finally change. So instead of running from setbacks, face them with maturity, face them with courage, face them with a pen and paper if you need to. Write down what happened. Write down what you could have done better. Write down what you will change moving forward. That is strategy. Now another powerful mindset shift is this. Stop seeing setbacks as roadblocks and start seeing them as redirections. Sometimes what you wanted was not the right path. Sometimes what you planned was not the best route. Sometimes you needed to be humbled so you could grow. Sometimes you needed to fail so you could develop the strength to handle success. Because success without strength destroys people. It makes them arrogant. It makes them careless. It makes them weak in character. But setbacks build character. Setbacks build patience. Setbacks build discipline. Setbacks build focus. In many cases, the setback is preparing you for a bigger level. Now let's talk about how to turn setbacks into practical strategy. When something fails, don't just say, "I'll try again." That's not enough. You must say, "I'll try again," with a better approach. Strategy means changing something. It means improving your system. It means strengthening your preparation. It means adjusting your habits. If you failed because you were inconsistent, your strategy is consistency. If you failed because you lacked skill, your strategy is learning. If you failed because you lacked discipline, your strategy is structure. If you failed because you trusted the wrong people, your strategy is boundaries. If you failed because you rushed, your strategy is patience. If you failed because you didn't plan, your strategy is planning. Every setback points to an area of growth. Every setback reveals something, and once you identify that lesson, you can build a new plan. That's why setbacks are not useless. They are instructions. Now you must also understand, these setbacks test your identity. They test whether you are committed or just interested. They test whether you are serious or just dreaming. Because anyone can feel inspired when life is easy. But setbacks reveal whether you have real strength. And strength is not built through comfort. Strength is built through resistance. So when a setback happens, don't treat it like a disaster. Treat it like training. Tell yourself, this is not here to destroy me. This is here to shape me. Tell yourself, I will not waste this pain. Tell yourself, I will learn, I will adjust, and I will come back stronger. Because the truth is, the future belongs to people who don't break when life hits them. The future belongs to people who use setbacks as fuel. The future belongs to people who turn every disappointment into discipline, every failure into feedback, and every obstacle into a strategy. And once you develop that mindset, setbacks no longer scare you, they simply sharpen you. Chapter 14. Build daily habits that strengthen your mind. A solution-focused mindset is not something you turn on when life becomes difficult. It is something you build daily, quietly, through habits. Because when pressure arrives, you will not rise to the level of your motivation. You will fall to the level of your training. That is why your daily routine matters so much. The mind you build in ordinary days becomes the mind that saves you in hard days. Most people wait for life to force them to change. They wait for a crisis. They wait for pain. They wait for a breaking point. But disciplined people don't wait. They train before the storm. They strengthen their thinking before the setback. They build mental habits while life is calm, so they can remain stable when life gets loud. And that is exactly what you are going to learn in this chapter. The first habit you must develop is morning mental direction. The way you start your day shapes the way you experience your day. If you wake up and immediately grab your phone, immediately absorb noise, immediately react to the world, your mind becomes scattered before you even begin. You start the day as a follower of chaos. But if you wake up and take a moment to direct your mind, you start the day as a leader. This doesn't have to be complicated. Even 5 minutes of quiet thinking can change your entire day. Sit up, breathe, and ask yourself, what matters today? Ask yourself, what is my priority? Ask yourself, what is one problem I need to solve? This simple practice puts your attention where it belongs. It trains your mind to focus on progress instead of distraction. The second habit is daily planning. A solution-focused person does not live randomly. They do not allow life to push them around. They plan. Planning is not about controlling everything. Planning is about giving your mind a clear path. When you plan your day, you reduce stress. You reduce confusion, you reduce wasted time, and you increase the chance that your energy will be used for something meaningful. Most people don't struggle because they are incapable. They struggle because they are unorganized. Their day becomes reactive. They handle whatever screams the loudest, and then they wonder why they feel exhausted at night without real progress. Planning gives you structure, and structure gives you freedom. The third habit is journaling, or what I call mental clearing. Your mind is not designed to hold everything. When you keep thoughts trapped inside your head, they grow heavier. When you write them down, they become manageable. A simple journal practice can be powerful. Write down what's bothering you. Write down what you need to solve. Write down your next steps. Write down what you learned from today. This is not just writing. This is mental training. It teaches your mind to organize problems instead of panicking over them. And something interesting happens when you journal. You begin seeing patterns. You begin noticing what keeps stressing you. You begin noticing what you keep avoiding. You begin noticing what habits are making your life harder. Awareness becomes sharper, and sharper awareness creates smarter decisions. The fourth habit is disciplined input. Your mind is like a stomach. It digests what you feed it. If you constantly feed your mind negativity, gossip, toxic conversations, and useless entertainment, your thinking will become weaker. But if you feed your mind strong ideas, wisdom, education, and uplifting influence, your thinking becomes stronger. This is why reading is such a powerful habit. Reading trains your mind to focus. It trains your mind to absorb ideas. It expands your perspective. It teaches you that solutions exist beyond your current understanding. Even a few pages a day can strengthen your thinking over time. The goal is not to read for information only. The goal is to train your mind to grow. The fifth habit is physical discipline. Many people separate the mind and body, but they are connected. When your body is weak, your mind becomes weaker. When your body is neglected, your mood suffers, your energy drops, your patience disappears. But when your body is trained, your mind becomes sharper. That's why exercise is not just about fitness. It is about mental strength. It teaches you how to do difficult things consistently. It teaches you how to push through discomfort. It teaches you how to build self-respect. Even a simple daily walk can improve your mindset. Even stretching can reduce stress. Even small physical effort reminds your mind that you are in control. The sixth habit is daily problem-solving practice. This is where the solution mindset becomes real. Every day, ask yourself one powerful question. What is one thing I can improve today? It might be your routine. It might be your finances. It might be your relationships. It might be your discipline. It might be your focus. But every day, choose one area and make one small improvement. This habit changes everything because it trains your brain to look for solutions automatically. Instead of waiting for problems to explode, you handle them early. Instead of ignoring weaknesses, you strengthen them daily. Over time, you become the kind of person who naturally fixes things instead of avoiding them. The seventh habit is reflection at night. Before you sleep, take a moment and review your day. Not to judge yourself harshly, but to learn. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? Ask yourself, where did I lose focus? Ask yourself, what can I do better tomorrow? This practice builds wisdom. It builds maturity. It builds awareness, and awareness is the foundation of self-control. Now all of these habits have one purpose: to train your mind to become stronger than your emotions, stronger than your excuses, stronger than your distractions, stronger than your problems. Because solutions don't appear to people who live in chaos. Solutions appear to people who live with discipline. And remember this, you don't need perfect habits. You need consistent habits. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a routine you can follow. Small habits done daily will beat big habits done once in a while. So from today forward, stop relying on motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Build habits instead. Habits stay. Habits carry you. Habits strengthen you. And when your habits are strong, your mind becomes strong. That is how you become a solution-focused person. Not by hoping for a better life, but by building a stronger mind every single day. Chapter 15. Become the person who always finds a way. At some point in life, you must stop seeing solution thinking as something you do and start seeing it as something you are. Because the greatest transformation is not a new plan. It is a new identity. A new standard. A new way of living. The moment you decide, deep in your mind, I am the kind of person who finds a way, you begin to move differently. You begin to think differently. You begin to respond to life differently. And that is what this final chapter is about. Not just learning ideas, but becoming the person who lives them. Most people spend their whole lives reacting. They react to problems, react to emotions, react to pressure, react to setbacks. And because they are always reacting, they never feel in control. They feel like life is something happening to them. They feel like they are constantly behind. But the person who always finds a way does not live like that. They live with leadership. They live with responsibility. They live with direction. They understand something simple. Life will always bring challenges. That is not negotiable. The world will always have obstacles. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Money will get tight. Health will be tested. Time will feel limited. The difference is not whether problems appear. The difference is who you become when they appear. A solution-focused person doesn't ask for a life without problems. They ask for a mind strong enough to handle any problem. Now becoming that person begins with a decision. A real decision, not a motivational feeling, not a temporary burst of inspiration. A decision that becomes a standard. A decision that says, no matter what happens, I will not collapse. I will not stay stuck. I will not waste my life in complaining and excuses. I will adapt. I will adjust. I will keep moving forward. This decision is powerful because it removes one dangerous habit, quitting mentally. Many people quit mentally long before they quit physically. They keep showing up, but inside they have already surrendered. They have already accepted defeat. They have already convinced themselves that it won't work. And once the mind quits, the body follows. Once the mind quits, effort disappears. Once the mind quits, the future shrinks. But the person who always finds a way refuses to quit mentally. They refuse to surrender internally, even when they are tired, even when they are disappointed, even when they feel unsure. They keep their mind in the fight. And this is where identity becomes everything. If you see yourself as a person who is easily overwhelmed, then overwhelm becomes your normal. If you see yourself as a person who gives up easily, then giving up becomes your habit. If you see yourself as a person who is unlucky, then you will always search for reasons why things won't work. But if you see yourself as a builder, you will build. If you see yourself as a fighter, you will fight. If you see yourself as a problem solver, you will solve. Your identity is the foundation of your behavior. So from today forward, you must practice speaking and thinking in identity language. Not just saying, I want to be better, but saying, I am becoming stronger. Not saying, I hope I stay disciplined, but saying, I am the kind of person who follows through. Not saying, I'll try, but saying, I will find a way. These are not just words. These are instructions. These are mental commands. And repeated commands become beliefs. Now, the person who always finds a way also understands the value of persistence. Persistence is not glamorous. Persistence is not exciting. Persistence is simply staying in the game longer than the problem. It is staying consistent when results are slow. It is continuing to show up when motivation is gone. It is doing the work when nobody is watching. And this is where most people fail. They want quick results. They want instant proof. They want success to show up quickly so they can feel confident. But the person who always finds a way does not need instant proof. They are not driven by mood. They are driven by purpose. They understand that delayed results are part of growth. They understand that every meaningful achievement requires time, repetition, and patience. That mindset alone separates winners from quitters. Another key trait of a person who always finds a way is flexibility. They don't stubbornly cling to one plan. They are committed to the goal, but flexible with the method. If one approach fails, they adjust. If one door closes, they search for another door. If one strategy doesn't work, they improve it. They don't collapse because the road is not smooth. They simply change direction and continue moving. This is why strong people don't fear failure. Failure is not an ending to them. Failure is a teacher. Failure is information. Failure is feedback. They don't treat failure like a tragedy. They treat it like a lesson, and they move forward with more wisdom than before. Now, let's talk about what truly makes a person unstoppable. It is not confidence. Confidence comes and goes. It is not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. The unstoppable person is built on one thing: commitment. Commitment is what remains when feelings change. Commitment says, even if I don't feel like it, I will do what must be done. Commitment says, even if I fail again, I will learn again. Commitment says, even if nobody supports me, I will still keep going. That is the heart of a solution-focused life. And once you have commitment, you stop needing perfect conditions. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop waiting for life to become easy. You become the right moment. You create the conditions through action. So let me leave you with this truth. You don't need a problem-free life to succeed. You need a strong mind. You need discipline. You need the ability to focus on the next step. You need the courage to adjust when life changes. And you need the identity of someone who refuses to stay down. Become the person who always finds a way, because when that becomes your identity, problems will still come, but they will no longer control you. Obstacles will still appear, but they will no longer stop you. Life will still test you, but it will not break you. And that is what it means to live with power. Conclusion. You have now reached the end of this audiobook, but what matters most is what happens next. Because knowledge alone does not change a life. Understanding alone does not create success. The real transformation begins when you take what you have learned and apply it daily, in real moments, when life becomes uncomfortable, uncertain, or difficult. The goal of this audiobook was never to promise you a problem-free life. That would be a lie. Problems will always exist. Challenges will always appear. Life will always test your patience, your discipline, and your mindset. But what you have gained here is something far more valuable than comfort. You have gained the tools to build a stronger mind, and a strong mind is the greatest advantage a person can ever have. You learned how to catch yourself living in problems before your thoughts become your reality. You learned how to take back control of your attention, because attention is the steering wheel of your life. You learned how to ask better questions so your mind begins searching for better answers. You learned the discipline of responding instead of reacting, because emotional reactions create chaos, while calm responses create solutions. You learned how to take responsibility without blaming yourself, because ownership is power and self-hate is poison. You learned how to break the addiction to negative thinking and stop feeding fear. You learned how to think in options instead of assuming you are trapped. You learned how to shrink big problems into the next step so overwhelm no longer controls you. You learned how to speak like a builder, not a victim, because your language programs your mindset. You learned how to replace complaints with constructive action, because action is the only true cure for frustration. You learned the wisdom of solving what you can and releasing what you can't, so you stop carrying unnecessary stress. You learned how to stay calm when life gets loud, because panic destroys progress. You learned how to turn setbacks into strategy, because failure is not a dead end, it is information. You learned how to build daily habits that strengthen your mind, because discipline is built in ordinary days, not in emergencies. And finally, you learned how to become the person who always finds a way. Now the question is simple: will you live this? Because the world is full of people who know what to do, but never do it. They understand, but they delay. They feel inspired, but they never change their habits. Don't let that be your story. Your future will not be shaped by what you listen to. Your future will be shaped by what you practice. From this moment forward, make it your standard to live in solutions. Make it your rule to focus on progress. Make it your identity to stay calm, stay responsible, and keep moving forward. You don't need perfect conditions. You need consistent action. You don't need a perfect life. You need a disciplined mind, and if you keep training that mind, day by day, step by step, you will become unstoppable. Because problems don't destroy people. People destroy themselves by staying stuck in problems. But you are no longer that person. From today forward, you don't live in problems, you live in progress.